There was no real pitching process for this, so I didn't go to studios and sort of say, hey, this is my idea for a film. It's about this kid and growing up in World War II. It was, I realised really early on that it's a very hard film to pitch. And I'm coming from New Zealand, we're terrible at pitching. So I'm going to write a script that's really good, and I'm going to let that be the pitch. So I wrote the screenplay, and I just sent that around. I said, I'm not going to come and talk to you about it. You just read the script, and if you like it, then we can talk. And then Searchlight read it, and they said, let's talk. And they said, we want to make the film, and we only really want to do it if you play Hitler. Growing up, I was obsessed with World War II, and I was obsessed with just reading about all the different battles and all that, because it really felt like there was a clear line between the good guys and the bad guys. And there's definitely been a lot of fantastic and amazing films that have approached this kind of subject from a really dramatic and a very serious and earnest way. And in this day and age, like right now, we can't forget what happened, and I think people kind of are. And my fear is that people are going to start getting kind of numb to the story of what happened in World War II, and I think you have to find new and inventive ways of telling that story again and again. And I think using humour and satire and subverting the message is, it's just another way of keeping people interested. Well, my mother was reading this book, Caging Skies, by Christine Lerner. But it's a really great book, and she was telling me about it, and I think this is the way that she spoke so passionately about the subject and the story and the characters, because it feels more relevant.
This book is very different to the film, so when you think about adaptation, it's quite an appropriate term. It's not a very funny book. It's quite dark, and there's no imaginary friend in the book. My mother was reading the book. She introduced me to the book in 2010, and at that time I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. I'd made 2 films, and she just told me about this book, and what she told me was very different to the book actually. She just told me sort of the bare bones of what it was about this young boy indoctrinated into the Hitler Youth, who gets injured, and while he's convalescing, he discovers a girl living in his attic. And that's kind of where she left it. But I was really attracted to this idea of this kid who, in those days, the way that 10-year-olds and those young kids were educated about Jews was that they were led to believe that they were subhuman, they were monsters, they had horns and tails, and they, and all of these, these things these embellishments that were designed to make them believe that they were things to be feared. There was something about that really appealed to me. It came from, I think it was the 20-year anniversary of the war in Bosnia, and I think it'd be 20 years, and I know nothing about this war, and I started doing research about that, and started learning how the war was affecting children who were then growing up, describing what they'd seen. And it just struck me that in every war, no one really taps into a child's experience and sees what the POV of a child is. Where we're grown-ups, we are mentors, we are supposed to be the people who are guiding children through life, people to look up to, and people to give advice and help raise children in a positive way. But during wars, grown-ups act like lunatics, and it becomes an absurdist sort of comedy, how grown-ups act during wars. To see that point of view from a child, I thought was something really interesting. I'm fascinated with the way that kids see the world, because I feel like it's a more pure and it feels like a more honest lens to look through. In all honesty, working with kids is really hard. It's like really hard. But there's different things that that come along with working with kids. But in the end, it's worth it because the performances they give, I think, outclass a lot of the grown-up performances that I've seen in movies. So Roman's a very sensitive kid who he's very emotionally engaged and emotionally connected, and cares deeply about people. And that's really what you want from an actor. And so like he's always asking, "Is it emotional enough? Did you feel anything?" They're amazing because that's kind of all you want. There's someone who understands emotions and is in touch with them.
I wanted this character of Jojo to be typical lonely young boy, and I think that if you look at like who his idol was, and in that time, Adolf, I was trying to figure out how I could relate, and so I felt like, okay, well, if he's a lonely kid who's who's desperate for some sort of parental figure, probably a father figure, then what better character to have in your life than an imaginary Adolf? That was a big big touchstone for me. Was Strangelove, and that was just another way of tackling a subject in a way that keeps an audience interested. For me, coming from a comedic background, I feel like comedy is, for me, the best way of engaging with an audience.
Stephen Merchant mentioned yesterday that with a lot of the horrible dictators and people like Mussolini and Hitler, humor was a good way to take them down. And today with some people, humor is a good...
Especially egomaniacs.
Exactly.
And it's, the bigger the ego, the more it hurts them.
The more insecurity.
People make jokes about them.
Yeah.
What was it like getting the rights to songs like, you have a Beatles song? What is the conversation with Paul McCartney like when you're saying, let me use your song for my Hitler movie?
Oh, well, it's just like anyone, you just call them up and you're just like, hey, or I just text them, hey, Paul, what up? Well, I came up with the idea of using that Beatles song probably a few months before we started shooting. I was looking through documentaries and I was looking at all this footage from rallies and stuff. I was looking at the fans and how the women were fainting and crying and just the frenzy of the crowds, and realised, oh man, this is basically like, it looks like Beatlemania, except it's in Germany, and I guess Hitler was sort of like the Beatles for these guys, and that really kind of gave me this idea of like, oh, maybe if I put all of that footage from those people going crazy to the to the song, that will help, I think, contemporize it a little bit, and also I think it helps to show the mindset of the country that as they went into the war, that they believed so deeply that this guy was the Messiah and he was like the greatest gift from God, and that they were going to win this war. They were so brainwashed and in such a frenzy that I think that's what the problem was. They were closed off to actually what was actually happening.
Well, one of the things that was great about the book is Christine had spent 5 years researching the topic and had really got into the details. So the source material, Taika was able to just completely jump off that with his own style, knowing that that material was really well researched. And when Taika came to her, one of the things that she said, because people were saying, when Taika, as we know his films, why were you okay with him adapting your book, which was very serious? And she said, when she looked at his earlier films, she could see that the laughs never come for free, that when you laugh, there's something else happening that he's going for. And so that gave her the confidence to know that while the film was never going to be the same as the book, it would have the heart that the book had.
Yeah, if you look at my box set, the first film is a comedy about mental illness. The second film is a comedy about child neglect. The third film is a comedy about, on the surface, about vampires, but it's about immigration and people who live on the margins. Fourth film is about the foster system. The fifth film is Thor Ragnarok, which is really delves deep into the plight of space Vikings. And then the sixth one is this film. I guess originally I thought I would probably make a more dramatic film than I had, but then I realised I don't know how to make a drama. I don't know. This is my sixth film, and I guess I was looking at the patterns, and I realised, I don't know how to do that. And I respect people now who are able to keep that tone going all the way through their work, and to be able to turn up to work and go, well, just get depressed all day long again. And I can't do that, because I feel like what I've realised about my work is that I have to infuse it with humour, some way of getting an audience to let their guard down, because I think that comedy, as we've seen over the thousands of years, that it's been a very valid art form, and it really irks me that people think that it's not. But for me, it opens an audience up and makes you more receptive. When you laugh, you want more, you listen more, and you're receptive, and that's when it's more effective to deliver a message or something more profound. So I realised, okay, I'll just continue with my style and I'll try and ride my sensibility and put the things that I want to see in a film like this.